Oh, okay, fine, perfect. Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today afternoon's session. This is the session two. We are talking about consolidation and transformation in this particular session of the Logistics Summit 2020 from the CII. In fact, the CII has adopted a transformation already. They made the change. They've gone digital, or at least into a digital conference this time versus the typical face-to-face that we are all used to. And in the process, they have also adopted an additional thing in the sense they've given us a 2 hour lunch break, an hour maybe for lunch, and then a little more time for a siesta because everybody is mostly working from home. Anyway, thanks to CII for getting us all here on this forum. And at the same time, I should also compliment the CII Secretariat, which has done a great job in getting this group of people, assembling this team right here on this session. And you will understand why I say that. So let me just jump to the presentation deck and we'll talk about it. Yeah. Okay, so what we have here in this session, and we are talking about consolidation and emerging transformation. So we have Mr. Kapoor, who's the Vice President of Logistics with Maruti Suzuki, and I'll be kind of introducing each of them when we go into the respective sessions. We also have Mr. Vivek Sarbai, who's Director of Customer Service and Logistics for Mondelez, Middle East and East Africa. Mr. Balasubramaniam, who is an air cargo expert, and we will talk about him again when we go towards this session, and Manu Bhalla, who is the Director and Global Head of the Contracts and Supply Chain Parts of Freight Systems India. And I am Mani, and just to let you know, I've been in the industry for over 25 years, and I've had the opportunity and the privilege to be working on multiple areas in the across various sectors of the industry, in the sense that I've headed product design and development, headed manufacturing locations, as well as headed supply chains for some of the large multinationals that I've worked out of India. I had a short stint abroad in the US too. I've been with mostly with Whirlpool and Nokia, and for a bit with Microsoft. At this point in time, I have my own consulting company, the Chainworks, and I've been working as part of Chainworks for the past 3 years, and been working with companies in manufacturing as well as in the supply chain domains. So having said that, let's just move on with the presentation. We're talking about consolidation. Now, what is consolidation? Now, in my view, consolidation can be seen in three different ways. Consolidation can be seen through the delivery methods. Now, these pictures might kind of make you wonder what it's all about when I'm talking about delivery methods. Two different aircraft and two different aircraft made by the two major aircraft manufacturing companies in the world, Boeing and Airbus. The 787 from Boeing and the A380 from Airbus. Now, they were slated to kind of hit the air more or less at the same time. But the two companies went very different in the way they strategize and need for an aircraft. Both of them are meant to take passengers fairly long distances. Each of them has about a 15,000 kilometer range. And but then one, the Boeing 787 for that matter, is more a point-to-point delivery. It is from short, small airports, and it kind of takes a smaller complement of passengers, maybe about 250 plus or minus, depending on the configuration, and goes point to point. And it went with the strategy of saying that people would like to travel point to point and will not like to go from hub to hub and have multiple transfers in between. The Airbus A380 had a very different strategy it was built on. It was meant for the hub-to-hub transport. So it assumed and it went with the original way of air transport, where passengers travel from their locations to a hub, and then from there on they take a large aircraft, the Airbus 380 in this instance, with a lot of creature comforts inside. and go elsewhere and then take another short flight to a destination. As it has unfolded over the years, you can see that the Airbus 380 is going to go out of production in the next year almost, and while the 787 is moving on. So it has kind of come to a situation where the point-to-point movement are being preferred by the passengers, and that strategy seems to have worked, and good for Boeing for that matter. Now, while this is one type of consolidation where we're talking about consolidation from a point to point with smaller loads, and I would want you to keep that in your minds. There's other kind of consolidation. Now, the other type of consolidation is about the market consolidation, the multiple players in the market just shaking up because of difficult times, high competition, and eventually coming down to less than a handful. I'm not going into an airline example here. Let's talk about the telecom example, where on the left-hand side, you see a whole bunch of logos. Many of you will be familiar with those logos, and we have kind of used one or the other over a period of time. But as of today, we have 4, practically actually 3 in the market at this point in time: Voda, Airtel, and Jio. And so this is a market shakeup that has happened over the years, and consolidation has happened. Some has bought the other, or they've gone into joint ventures. Whichever way, there is only 3 out of some 30 that are remaining. Now, this is something which I don't have to detail out. All of you understand this very well. A third kind of consolidation. Now, on the left-hand side is a typical street scene that we see in our country. Now, you can this is how we used to buy. You used to go across to the location. You used to pick from clothes from somewhere, grocery from somewhere else, food from somewhere else, and anything else from somewhere else. So you went shop to shop, and that was fun too. We went across to various locations and bought what we wanted. But now things have changed, wherein we are looking at how can I minimize my efforts and do what I love to do more than going from store to store buying stuff. Today, all I need to do is work on my device on my hand, and at the end of it, it lands up by magic. It is at my doorstep. And it does not confine to one particular category of products. It goes across categories. We have the Flipkarts and the Amazons and others who are giving us that service. And we are really not worried about who is actually doing the job. As our job, we have delegated that activity to a particular company, an Amazon or a Flipkart, and they do things themselves. There are many things that they get done by others, but eventually the material lands up at our doorstep. As I said, it's magic. And it's there immediately, 3 hours, 5 hours, next day morning, whatever that has been agreed upon between the buyer and the seller. So this is another kind of consolidation where the buying has got consolidated by the user to one particular party, or like similar to that. So we are seeing 3 different types of consolidation. So how is this kind of impacting the logistics industry? What is the relationship between all of this and the logistics industry? Do we have to change? Yes, we have to. And we just don't need to change. We have to truly transform. And transform is going beyond change. Should we think about a point-to-point load with smaller vehicles, which can carry a certain quantity, which is good enough? Or should we go with the old hub and spoke method? What are the ways of doing things? Should we have the typical small and medium warehouses, or the large boxes that were coming up, especially after GST? Because our entire thought process from the old way tax regime that we had to what has happened after the GST is now there is a lot of questions coming up after the COVID has impacted. And so these are questions that are possibly in the minds of many companies. Many of you are in this conference. Now, should we transform? This is not just a small change. When we're talking transformation, we're talking about a digital transformation, a transformation in the way we deal with material in our warehouses, the way we ship material across, whether it is by truck, or by road, by air, by roll-on, roll-off, or by even coastal. In the morning, we had a lot of conversation regarding inland shipping too, and inland waterways. So we want to look at all of this. So at this point in time, most of us are concerned, and we are looking to some kind of a toolkit. Give me a transformation toolkit. It'll be nice if somebody handed me a transformation toolkit saying, this is how my supply chain should transform to, and this is what should happen. Well, for that, you need to call the chain works. That's another story altogether. But in this conference and in this half an hour or 45 minutes that we have just now, we are going to be giving you some pointers. And for that pointers, yeah, as I said, you have a great assembly of people with Mr. Kapoor, who will be talking a lot about road, rail, waterway, etc. We have Vivek, who will be talking about certain digital parts of it. We have Mr. Balasubramanian, who's an air cargo expert, as I said, and of course, Mr. Manu Balla, who is a freight forwarding and a warehousing expert, and everything in between. So you have every single aspect of the supply chain of the logistics piece covered in this particular session with the experts around. There's about 150 years of experience on the table. So I would suggest that you kind of make sure that your siesta is done and you're wide awake and your eyes and ears are open to listen to the folks on the call. Let us just move on. I'll be handing over to Mr. Kapoor in a moment. Mr. Kapoor, as I said, has been with Maruti Suzuki, and Maruti Suzuki, as we all know, has been one of our favorites. In many cases, it will be our first car ever in our lives. And that's the largest car maker in the country. And possibly Mr. Kapoor also made the first car that each of us owned, because he has been with Maruti for almost 34 years. And that's a pretty long stint in which he has been in the production, in administration. In fact, he mentioned to me that he was working in the HR function for some time. So the kind of experience that we're seeing here is diverse. He was managing spare parts. In fact, he's somebody who looks for improvements and innovation, and he created the MGA, the Maruti Genuine Accessories brand. And he's been with the logistics function for the past 8 years, as he says. Now, he has brought in some technology, a lot of technology into the logistics piece of Maruti, wherein he has brought in a control room, which is giving everybody a complete end-to-end real-time visibility to the customers. And in terms of moving a lot from being a road carried material, and especially car, into rail and also through water. I will let him talk about it. And Mr. Kapoor, all yours. Mr. Kapoor?
Sorry, it was muted. A very good afternoon to all distinguished guests and esteemed panel members. I hope everyone is taking good care of themselves and their family members as we are going through a troubled times, and we just pray that this pandemic goes out as soon as possible. Now, coming to Indian automotive industry, we are in a mid of great transformation. The Indian automobile industry plays an important role in the economy of the country. Its contribution to GDP is approximately 7%, and whereas to the manufacturing GDP is approximately 50%, which is generating 2 million direct and over 30 million indirect employment. In short, we can say the automobile industry is the barometer of our economy. The Automotive Mission Plan 2026 has a great vision for the Indian automotive industry. As per the mission, Indian automotive industry will be amongst the top 3 in the world in engineering, manufacture, and export of vehicles. AMP 2026 envisages that we will grow approximately 3 to 3.5 times in value as the current output, and will go up to the contribution of 12% to the Indian GDP, thus creating 65 million jobs. Next. Kindly change the slide, please. The auto industry in India had a good growth for over last 5 years. However, things have started to change post 1819. The automotive sales nosedives more than 18% for the first time after 20 years. Well, there is a saying that if the going gets tough, then the tough gets going. As our government always says, "Ab achhe din aayenge," we are hope that past this current pandemic, there will be a quantum jump in the automobile industry. Whereas various steps have been taken by the government as well as RBI to infuse liquidity in the market. So here now you can see what is the present automobile dispatch system in the country presently. As you see, most of the volume of automobiles are moved by road, which is more than 90%, and a meager amount, which is less than 7%, is being done through train. So here I would like to point out that there is a huge opportunity for multimodal transportation. Say it can be train, it can be inland waterways, coastal shipping, etc. As we are heavily dependent on the road, and it is high time that we must act now to mitigate the risk of dependency on the single mode. You also know that dependency on the single mode is bound to create issues for us. Our national highways, which contribute only 9% of the total road network, however, which account for more than 65% of the freight traffic. The entire road network is severely congested. And the biggest challenge today is getting the skilled long-haul carrier drivers. As you all know, that cars are being transported in a huge carriers, which is approximately 18.75 meter long and 4.75 meter tall. So driving maneuverability itself is a difficult issue. It is now time to switch tracks. We require a logistic solutions for catering high volumes as envisaged in the automotive mission plan. Multimodal logistics is a solution to overcome these challenges. Multimodal logistics is the most preferred option in the most developed country. More than 40% of the volumes are dispatched through rail in countries like US and China, to the extent of double-deck, triple-deck trains available abroad. Right, please. Please change the.
It's not moving, just give me a second.
Yeah. The Indian automotive industry recognizes its responsibility towards the green and eco-friendly logistics. Accordingly, industry and Maruti Suzuki have drawn an ambition plans to shift volumes to railways. You will appreciate that in last 5 years, we in Maruti have increased our rail dispatches by approximately 171%. Last year alone, we could transport 1.75 lakh cars through rail mode. The rail dispatches have touched to 15% of the total volume. Cars are now being dispatched to all over the country and more destinations are being developed. You will appreciate more and more destinations, will be able to contribute more volume. This is how we have spread out in the entire country. We have loading stations around the plant and Gujarat plant and dispatch various stations. Now let us look into detail what goes actually into train logistics or multimodal logistics. It has got three important elements: the first mile or the loading infrastructure, then the rolling stock, which are rakes, and the unloading or destination terminals. Presently, as we see in our country, the entire logistic structure is fragmented. For each element, we need to interact and coordinate with different agencies. Please click on. So instead of focusing on our core job of manufacturing cars, we are working like service providers, interacting with various people. Presently, there are very few 3PL operators who are capable of managing all activities. Unlike abroad, as explained earlier, to manage the entire gamut of operations, it is necessary for logistics players to develop themselves from service providers to solution providers. This can be only provided by a 3PL operator who is able to consolidate the entire value chain. They are having rakes. Please go back. They are having rakes. They can easily tie up with private terminals and develop other infrastructures at the unloading terminals. The role of OEM should only be limited to planning and manufacturing of cars, and rest everything needs to be taken care by the service providers. They should be able to provide delivery factory to customer in factory fresh condition. End-to-end solutions, what we say. Change the slide, please. Not just rail, other multimodal options, including coastal shipping and inland waterways, are being worked out in the country. The present government is very bullish on waterways. Multimodal terminals are being developed across the country on main river Ganga. You can see two main tracks which are in development phase right now. Like Varanasi, which will be the hub of multimodal railways, is being developed in big way. Continuing the government's objective, we at MSIL are also taking up this project in big way. We were the first ones to get associated with inland waterways to go for a trial on the Ganga river. The trial was successfully conducted. Subsequently, the government is focusing on developing the infrastructure. So this also poses a big opportunity for 3PL service providers to increase their business share. In the end, I would like to just point out that there is an immense potential in the country for service providers like 3PL companies, which will consolidate the entire trucking operations, stockyards, warehouses, and end-to-end deliveries. Mark my words, the multimodal share is going to increase substantially from present 7% to 20% in coming years. I also believe the opportunities available here would lead to induction of more and more 3PLs as global players will expected to join this country, and thus bringing down the cost and improving the efficiencies of the operations. Thank you. This is all from my side.
Thank you, Mr. Kapoor. Thanks for joining us and sharing us your thoughts and your experience, really. And also, in fact, I would appreciate yourself and the team in Maruti Suzuki for showing the country that what can be done in terms of multimodal transport. If one can actually move cars, which used to be going by roads, as you rightly pointed out, by car-carrying trucks, which are 18 to 20 meters long, and causing so much of a congestion on the road, as well as a lot of time, and moving them over to trains and as well as to waterways. You're showing the way, the path for the rest of the country to follow, for the other industries to also follow. So thanks a lot for that fantastic effort that you and your team have put up. And that itself is, and I also get the point that At this point in time, as you rightly pointed out, while your role as an OEM and any OEM's role should be in terms of planning, manufacturing, ensuring quality, and making sure that the right product in the right form reaches the customer, the entire transactional activity and the coordination activity which is being done by the OEM should be avoided, and that can be consolidated to 3PL, who can kind of take up that responsibility and move forward. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. Thanks for pointing it out to all of us. With that, thank you very much, sir. We'll move to the next presenter. Typically, logistics, and it was said in the morning too, I'm not sure if it was talked about in the inaugural session or in the first session, but typically all of us know that logistics is looked at more as a cost center, and it is not a boardroom play. But then slowly it has been everybody, especially in a way thanks to the COVID situation. A lot of people, from business leaders to the political leaders, have started talking supply chain. Now, how can logistics move from being just a cost focus for an enterprise to becoming a business enabler? Now, that is the question, and that's something which Vivek will address next. Just to give you a quick introduction to Vivek. Vivek is ex-director of customer service and logistics for Mondelez in Middle East and Africa. But then that was possibly where he was last. But then he has been in all over the place in Asia Pacific and Africa. So he has a lot of experience across the Africa and the Asian continent. And he has been with marquee names like P&G, Coke, Baxter, and Mondelez now. And as far as Vivek is concerned, he likes to say that his strength is in the business planning, strategic sourcing, of course, the geography. We already saw the vast geography that he's worked in, network, and culture. So Vivek, please take us through your thoughts on how logistics can move from cost focus to enabling business growth.
Thank you, Mani, and thank you, Mr. Kapoor. It was a learning for me also. Listening to you. I hope everybody is safe. That's the way I would like to begin. And what I would like to take you through is the way logistics is shaping in the last 4 to 5 years. And before I go and read this slide or explain this slide, I would just like all of you to just understand 3 or 4 things which have happened, which has exponentially driven the transformation and will continue to drive the transformation. I think the first one is the bank accounts. And the second one is mobile penetration. I think these 2 things have actually enabled a high level of interconnectivity, increased the accessibility a lot. And the third thing which is happening is a lot of startup culture, which is fueled by a lot of money, which is trying to drive a completely disruptive business model. So there are 3 things which are happening, which is taking into cognizance. If we take into cognizance, and I've tried to change the way the supply chain strategy used to look, or logistics strategy used to look, and what it will look like in future. So these are some of the words which I would like to add now. So I think one of the things which is happening is that we talk about a lot of complexity in supply chain. But I think now it's a time to understand that complexity is the competitive advantage. Now, how do you make complexity not inefficient or uneconomical? I think that's where logistics and supply chain play a very big role. So the first word which has to be included in the journey is intelligent. Now, if I have to take you through what it meant earlier, it used to be more of proactive, forward-looking capability. Now it's becoming intelligent capability. So I think that's the first thing which needs to be included. The second one is interconnected. In the earlier supply chain documents, you would have seen a lot of word like collaborative. Now that collaborative can be systematized and it can be substituted with a word called interconnected, because the best way to reach scale is through interconnectivity now, and not the other way around. The third thing which is happening is the asset light. Because of an interconnected world, the accessibility of everybody is so good. You don't have to create your own assets. I mean, let me say that this also means that big is no more big and small is no more small. So everybody has the right level of accessibility. You can see the way e-commerce has taken place. It has benefited the smallest entrepreneur. Uh, Portals like India Mart, and I'm sure many such portals are there. They are actually benefiting the small scale and the medium scale enterprises, and they are able to now compete. And therefore, the organizations don't have to go and start inputting their own asset space. The fourth one is digitally enabled. When I'm saying internally and externally, it essentially means that there is no point in just attempting an internal digitalization unless the ecosystem itself is also digitalized. So it's the vendor base you work with. They have to be equally sharing the same mindset as you are. And therefore, you are not just digitalizing internally and externally as well. So the key choice here is what is that portion of supply chain which you will internally digitalize, and what portion will be done externally. The fourth one is, I would say, a recent addition. It's like a COVID, let me say it's a COVID addition. It's called resilient. I mean, I've never heard this word earlier, but this is what is now going to happen. And resilient is one thing which will be defined, I think, over the next 1 year or so. It could mean, I mean, the way I will try to explain this is that if COVID would have happened in 2010, just 10 years back, we would have been would have been a very different way of looking at supply chain. So resilient is something which I think will keep getting evolved and defined, but it's something to do with technology as well. I would also say it will also mean secure and safe. Uh, when I say secure, because when you try to become too IT enabled, you also have a threat of IT disruptions, which can create another kind of a supply chain disruption. So I think resilient is the buzzword now, and it has to be really defined. And the last one is going to be omni-channel, and that's where the logistics will have to be a big player or a big role. I think there is a big opportunity now to work on shared networks. This was a concept which I actually first heard way back in 2004 in a seminar of John Gatona. But I was not able to conceive that how a shared network can happen. But I think now a shared network can happen, and our organizations should proactively go for developing a logistic capability around omni-channel. So what all in all this transformation can do, or is the value proposition it brings? I think it's supply chain was always known to be very customer centric. It actually now is the time to become consumer centric. So supply chain will now have a role. I mean, earlier we used to define supply chain success through increased sales, reducing cost and reducing cash flow, I mean, reducing inventory. But now we can imagine that supply chain can actually start to build brand equity directly. So I think that's a big change, and that's a paradigm shift for entire logistics and supply chain fraternity. Now, how it's going to be done is that what I'm observing is that there are different roles being created in an organization, and I would not say that create one out of three which are shown here. You have to create all the three simultaneously to make it work. The first one you have to understand is there are three skills needed in driving this transformation. One is the business skills, which of course we understand. Then there is an analytical skills, and then there's technology skills. So you need people who are at the interface of business skills and analytical skills, which are like called business translator. They are the most important people here, who are actually going to stitch the overall big picture and then decide which area, as I mentioned earlier, which area to uh, digitalize internally, or which area to be technology enabled internally versus the external one. The second roles which are getting created is business skills as well as technology skills, which are called data architect. So data architect are something which will bring, if this is a business, this is the kind of technology which is helpful. And the third one is the data scientist, which is basically technology skills and analytical skills. Now, what I've also observed is that most of the organizations end up hiring data scientists without realizing that having data scientists, which is definitely at the core of which the business, I mean, the transformation will evolve. If you don't have a data architect and a business translator, you will not end up having the right benefit. So that's a mistake many organizations have done. But I think if you have these three people together working, then the space at which you can drive digitalization or transformation will be technology enabled one will be much faster. Can you go to the next slide, Mani? Here is what I wanted to show a simple case study. I mean, this is Morocco, which is, I mean, why in India I'm talking about Morocco. There are two reasons for it. Morocco is very similar to India. If you go to Morocco, you'll find it. I mean, you'll not be able to realize that you're outside India. Very similar demographics, very similar route to market, very similar kind of people. And the second one is this business which I'm talking about is approximately $100 million business. So it's not a big business. It's like a 600, 700, 100 crore equivalent company. And I wanted to share this mainly because when I look at India, I haven't seen business of this size that digitally enabled. And that's the reason I wanted to be provocative in this forum, that I will bring an example from Morocco, which is a much smaller company compared to countries than India, and how a business of that scale is so highly digitally enabled than what we have in India, and a plethora of organizations which are at that level of scale. So if you see the earlier system used to be a hub, and then you used to have a manual intervention in planning routes and scheduling orders. Then the vehicle used to pick it up, and there was no real-time visibility. And there is a startup which we found in Morocco, and they were Moroccans who were studied in Canada, and they started a new company. And there we actually piloted with them, where we found the entire process to be absolutely contactless and everything on digital footprint. So the partner used to automate everything, and the only physical activity which is happening is the unloading and loading, and the truck being driven. The entire information flow is end to end, is all absolutely on a hand pad. Can you go to the next slide, please? And this is the architecture. Now, if you have, I mean, we have our own system, then we have our distributor system, and then we have interface system, and then there's a digital system. So there are four systems at play and integrated. And this is, again, as I said, I wanted to, invite some thoughts in minds of everybody here, that a business of that scale is, and in a country like third world, what we may say, an emerging market, is having such kind of integrated approach in terms of tech enablement. And if you really ask me, in the COVID scenario, our business in Morocco did not face disruption to that extent, because we really required very less people, apart from truck drivers and the people on the shop floor and the warehouse. We just did not have, and we were able to organize them well and giving them instructions without being in the forefront of this activity. Can you go to the next one? And this is some of the insights. Now, this is basically what's trying to drive, because our distributor had 80 or 100 vehicles. So it's like a small transport company. And this was being done because we were trying to make them efficient, so that we generate more fuel for cash, and therefore we drive more business growth. And this is the kind of data IMS. I've just put one snapshot of it, which we are trying to use. And the best part of it was that we are able to tell the retailers that this is the time we are coming. So if he has to plan anything, he can tell us. We can do dynamic route planning, all of that. And one of the things which I've written here is that we really identified a lot of opportunities in scheduling, load patterns, customer order patterns, which can make us much more efficient than what we used to think. I mean, we never tried to do this from the perspective of cost saving. We thought that we are quite efficient. But when we put this in place, we really found that there's a lot of efficiency improvements which can happen if we have an intelligent system of managing logistics. This is my last slide. Thanks again, Mani, for giving this opportunity to share. You can take questions whenever you want. Thank you.
Thanks, Vivek. Thanks a lot for that. We will do the questions in the Q&A space later in the session. But thanks a lot for these insights, Vivek. In fact, one of the fundamental things that you brought up, and a big question into everybody's mind that should go around, is data. Now, while we are talking about data architecture, data analysis, etc., one of the challenges that we face in many companies that we work with, and we are ourselves partly to blame, is that the basic data collection itself does not happen in the right manner. So now what you're showcasing to us here is, and the implied underlying meaning here is also to say that fundamentally, if the logistics teams start looking at data and they start talking business. Today, we talk logistics, we talk cost, we talk about trucks, we talk about load and those kind of terms. Now, we don't talk business. We don't talk our business. We don't talk the customer's business. And you beautifully brought out a point which said, it's no longer customer, we should be talking the consumer. And that differentiation, that minor, that subtle difference that is there, and which is actually massive, is normally not noticed and worked upon. So understanding the consumer and understanding the business priorities of your own business, your customer's business, and the consumer's expectations, working the data, looking at your data, collecting it, working it around, and putting right now, as you rightly pointed out, there is also all this, a lot of technology that support that's around. And thanks to the mobile penetration, we are and the startup culture, all of these are available in a very, very free manner. Free in the sense, not free of cost, but then it is available freely for anybody to use, and which can be brought together and interconnected so that we are able to talk business and make a difference to our organizations that we work for. Thanks a lot, Vivek. Thanks for bringing up these points, and these are fantastic dashboards and interesting case study from Oracle. Thank you very much. So with that, we move on to Mr. Balasubramaniam. Now, here, let me put it this way. We have, as he calls himself, we have an 18-year-old dinosaur. 18-year-old because he's got the energy and the enthusiasm of an 18-year-old, but then he's a dinosaur in the industry with a 40+ years of experience under his belt. Now, he's been all in and out in air and air cargo. He's done a lot of mathematical working on a sheet of paper just a couple of minutes before the aircraft takes off, and he has been in the back office to do that. And he also led the air cargo and passenger areas of one of the largest airlines in the world, which is Emirates. Now, on top of that, if there are those things at the bottom with the bullet points, which I'm not going to try paraphrase, I'm going to read it as it is. These credentials that are there. He's the vice chairman of the IATA Dangerous Goods Board, and he's also one of the founder members of the IATA Cargo Handling Council. Now, he's not stopped at that. He has co-authored, incidentally, the IATA Dangerous Goods Regulations and IATA Cargo Handling Manual, which is now followed globally. He is the advisor to the IATA and UAE Dangerous Goods Panel, and of course, as visiting faculty with the transportation related to air cargo for IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency. So now that is the kind of person that we have next on the session. He's going to talk to you about air cargo and a paradigm shift in that. Bala, all yours.
Thank you, Mani. I think that was a very generous introduction. And I have been in this industry for 42+ years, and it has been a fantastic journey. As I used to say, if you just cut my nerves and blood, it will all be airline, and airline, nothing else. But it has been very interesting. I'll set the scene first. Air cargo just carries only 1% of the whole international volume. But guess what is the value that air cargo carries? 1/3, 35% actually. 52 million tons per annum is carried, and about 657 million packages per day. Every day it is carried. It will be very interesting for you to know the top bullet point: 2.5 million lives are saved by air cargo. I'll digress for a moment. When Mani introduced me, he read the last sentence to say I'm a visiting faculty for International Atomic Energy Agency. There are many regulators in this world, many cargo handling agents, many airlines in this world who, purely due to ignorance, do not differentiate between a life-saving radionuclide medicine from an ordinary cargo consignment. So myself and another colleague of mine, we embarked upon a global sort of project where we went country after country, educated the regulators, educated the handlers, educated the airlines in terms of if molybdenum 99 is carried, what is the value of it? Cobalt 60. You can mention many radionuclides. So those were the type of things where robust practices were brought in. So the whole logistics scenario of exporting and sending those very critical medicines to needy places completely not changed lives, it prevented death. So that is the level that air cargo could play. If I can just completely zoom into the Indian scenario, aviation contributes totally about $30 billion to the GDP of India. And it employs more than 10 lakhs, and the numbers are much more now. Annual volumes are about 3.5 million tons. Seems not happy. You know why? I have written on the side, Hong Kong does 5.1 by itself. Yes, I am aware of the fact that Hong Kong is just at the foot of China. That means you are near the engine of the world. So naturally you will have more cargo, but that is what we have to go. Domestic air cargo growth is at about 6.7 pre-COVID. I don't see any reason why that should go down. It should rather increase with the type of multimodal that Mr. Kapoor brought out so beautifully in his presentation. It has got its own niche area where certain needy things could be brought in. There are many airstrips in India which are completely unused. They are all just pieces of land. All the government has to do is, when we talk about logistics, we need to look at all modes of transport. In fact, I was very happy that Mr. Pawan Kumar Agarwal was there in the morning in inaugural. And when he brought in the logistics policy, which is on the draft policy, I was able to contribute a little bit to that. And those are the areas where we should look at. Can you change the slide, please? Okay, consolidation was the topic given to us. If in our industry, air cargo industry, there is no consolidation, I would say in no other industry. Airline industry is literally, to use an airline parlance, nosedived. Completely. You know what is the number? A number which is not in the slide. 95% was the number which was shown by IATA as business down. We have talked about all the previous incidents, Gulf War, the cash cloud scenario, the 2008-09 financial meltdown. We talked about even Second World War. Probably we would even talk about Spanish flu during the last century. But none completely closed down. The word lockdown probably was invented in English after it was 3 months back. Complete lockdown. Nobody has seen it there. So in that, who is the worst sufferer? Airline industry and hospitality industry completely. 4.5 million flights were cancelled. And IATA estimates 314 billion loss. It's not just normal. We are used to hearing 3 words for the past 3 months. One is unprecedented. Another is new normal. Third is completely we need to align ourselves with resilience. These are the 3 words we have used. That's very, very truthful for air cargo and for airline. But the only savior in this airline industry who is still bringing, if you want a full dinner, I may not be able to provide you, but I'm at least giving you 1-course meal, that is air cargo. So air cargo was a distant, sometimes unwanted, I didn't say it loudly, second cousin for the passenger side of the business, but today that is the most important cousin without whom others can't eat. That's the reality. Air cargo is saving the world in the airline industry. Carriage of cargo on passenger cabin. Will you and I have ever dreamt of that? Anybody taking the cargo and putting it on a passenger seat and then restraining it? Or take the seats out and let me fill it up with cargo. That's what is happening in many countries, including India, where SpiceJet has shown the way. And many, many countries, they are doing it. And passenger traffic totally went by 85% in the past 3 months put together. And ground handling agents face a huge, huge problem. They are the backbone of aviation industry. If they are not there at the airports, I think my friend Manu will totally agree with me. We can't even do business. They are completely famished and they are down. So the whole industry is looking for probably some consolidation, yes. Some mergers and acquisition, yes. Some small fish will be gulped by some big fish, probably yes. So this is going to be a very critical phase of our whole industry there. In the which we have never seen, truly, truly unprecedented. Many carriers have filed for bankruptcy or being looked at as a soft target for takeover. Talk about South African Airways in doldrums, Air Mauritius in doldrums, Virgin Atlantic in doldrums, everybody. And even in the United States, people are talking about one or two carriers being in doldrums there. So what are the emerging themes that such a bad situation there when everybody is looking for an immediate solution? The word strategy, they want to keep it aside for the moment because they say, I'm not looking into the horizon. I'm not doing the crystal ball gazing. I want to know how I feel immediate solution. The word strategy, they want to keep it aside for the moment because they say, I'm not looking into the horizon. I'm not doing the crystal ball gazing. I want to know how I fill my belly tomorrow, how I pay my employees for this month, how I make my assets sweat for me for next month. So conserve cash, and conserve cash. That's what people talk about. E-commerce had an excellent growth of 261% in the last 7 years. Very fortunately, even in the COVID times, e-commerce is helping because this is what reaches people where people may not be. Mani, when he did his inaugural presentation, he showed how the third consolidation is happening, where people have got to just press a button or just a switch or anything there on their mobile phone, and then they get things delivered. I only wish money whether Airbus also I can just press a one and I can order for an Airbus 380 or a Boeing 747. I don't know. I'll just wait for the day and we will do that. So it is completely digitalized there. So this digitalization is not significant. It's not just a normal one. It is significantly, and consciously I've used the word, it is not digitization. I don't take a piece of paper, convert it into PDF and send it to you. That is digitization. We have to go for digitalization. I don't want to steal the thunder of the next session, so I would leave it at that. It is happening in a very big way in the aviation industry, be it use of artificial intelligence or using blockchain completely. See, because globalization, we heard a lot about deglobalization in the morning. Globalization gave us a premise that there are no borders. People can travel freely. People can take employment freely. Goods will travel freely. All those paradigms are being questioned today. COVID, in a way, has asked us to relook at each and every thing which we took for granted, especially in the last 15 years there. So that is where we have to go back and then look at it, basically. Then, in airline and hospitality industry, especially the paradigm shift is the maximum. So that forces us not to just look at a new strategy. I can't just tweak my business model and say I'm okay. I need to change my business model completely. If all the people start talking exactly like the CAA seminar today that we are doing, then people won't travel. I will not travel from Dubai to Chennai or to Delhi or to New York or anywhere. So that is going to be a reality. We need to bite the bullet and we need to take cognizance of that. That means those hotels are not going to be filled. So we are going to take up. But passenger may move, passenger may not move. Cargo will move, cargo must move. That is the beauty of logistics there. If that cargo doesn't move, then tomorrow you don't get what you want in the other part of the world there. So in terms of the emerging themes as well as the trends in consolidation, people have started talking about nearshoring and reshoring as against offshoring. So people were always thinking, oh, no problem. If I'm in a corner of Mexico, it doesn't matter. My production plants can be in Vietnam. But today, probably that is one thing which people are thinking about. Should I have to do a sort of a cost-effective nearshore type of thing? That's another model which is emerging there. And then bigger wide-bodied aircraft. Again, my friend Mani talked about it in terms of wide-body, the bigger aircraft and the smaller one. Smaller aircraft may be good for probably shorter distances, medium distances, and also where you do a lot of point-to-point there. Bigger aircraft provide you the bulk carrying and hub and spoke there. Will it come through? My gut feel is yes, it may take another 3-4 years time, not before that. Till then, you know, the airline industry has to sort of have the cash flow and it has to have the nerves to hold itself back. That is the way that's going to completely turn out. So consolidation and emerging themes, when you look at airline industry, it has completely brought this industry to the knees. Every one of us have got to completely relook at it, and the whole world is doing. And in India, I am very, very confident this is going to give a big shot to this industry. Amazon has come a big time into India in Hyderabad. They've got a facility, as all of you will know. Maybe Alibaba tomorrow, maybe some other companies tomorrow. So it's a question of completely for us to leverage the small airfields, use the drone technology a lot, because that's going to completely change the way we do things, reach things as quickly as possible. That is where air cargo comes into picture. We will never carry big oil tankers or big cement bags of aircraft and aircraft. No, that is not our area. Our area is to make things needy, which the e-commerce has got to reach on time, and the needy things to reach on time. Air cargo does a very big role on that, and that's what we are looking forward to. I'm happy to take on questions when we come on to the question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you, Bala. Thank you very much. And the way you put it, I will not attempt to summarize anything over there. Thank you very much, Bala. In fact, just one point that I would like to make is if you're looking to buy an aircraft online, you might want to talk to Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban is a is a Dallas-based billionaire, and he is the first guy in the world who has actually bought an aircraft online. So you can kind of find out and talk to him. So
you told me to buy two, I'll buy two, one for you and one for me.
So having said that, we'll move on to the panel, and as we move to the panel, I would like to introduce Mr. Manu Balla. Manu Balla is the director and the global head of contract logistics and supply chain for Freight Systems. And again, as I said, he has had more than 30 years, 25 plus years of experience in technology, supply chain, and he has been with Freight System for a fairly long time, 19 years, which is fantastic. And in the process, when you're there for 19 years and you've grown to the level of the CEO, director, global head, you have moved the business needle significantly. So Manu has been instrumental in moving it from what is 60 crores to many hundreds of crores today. He's been also instrumental in creating the supply chain division separate, which is called as Logics. Now, Manu has in the process had the opportunity to work across all the elements of logistics, which is in ocean, air, and into the warehousing, freight forwarding, etc. I would go to Manu and in the interest of time and quickly ask him about his views on consolidation. That's the first question in the panel. I'd like to put it up to him to say, how do you look at this element of consolidation? Could the others be on mute, please? How do you look at other participants than me and Manu? Please be on mute. Thank you. So, how do you look at consolidation and transformation in the warehousing and the freight forwarding industry, Manu?
Hi, Mani. Hello, everybody. Thanks for that introduction, Mani. But before I come to your question, what do I think about consolidation? I must tell you about something new that I learned, right? So in supply chain and all the time, we talk about just-in-time logistics, right? And my friend, Mr. Kapoor, is at Maruti. We do some just-in-time logistics for Maruti also. But the new word I heard is, and what I learned, I penned it down, is just in case, right? So now our logistics and supply chain is not only about just in time, you also got to look at just in case, right? So when you come to consolidation, you have to keep in mind the just in case aspect also. So to answer directly, whether we see any consolidation happening in warehousing, I think the path that, at least in India context, of consolidation of warehouses is not going to stop, because we all need to take advantage of scale, automation, best practices, and shared facilities. Because you see, the days are gone where people will have 20,000 square foot warehouse, try to manage it themselves, and stay away from outsourcing. Those days are gone, because you have to be very lean. You have to be looking at shared services, and you have to, like my friend Vikram said, that we need to, we need to have resilience in the supply chain and logistics. Now, you cannot go for automation or huge investments in small warehouses. So those large warehouses will continue to happen. I think what has really shaken up the industry a little bit, particularly in India again, has been the interstate movement was throttled during the COVID and lockdowns and things like that. So there, in my view, I think that was an aberration, and there will always, in future also, I think all the governments have also realized we cannot choke the supply chain lines. We have to enable supply chain, right? And so the movement of goods from large format warehouses, which are generally, on the outskirts of the cities, will continue. And that is my idea about consolidation in the warehousing space. So I think this is a journey we have embarked on, and I think it's going to continue, and we are going to see more and more investment and more players coming in. We ourselves as Freight Systems have built large multi-user facilities in Dubai, in India, and now we're setting up in Malaysia. So this is the way forward worldwide. And another beautiful word I just heard about, and of course I've heard it before, but digitalization, which both Bala and Vikram spoke about, is something that we really need to sort of take cognizance of, because it's very different from digitization, like Bala said, and digitalization is what is going to be the future. And when we talked about multimodal that Mr. Kapoor spoke about, a lot of it, the 3PLs are probably interested, but where we are probably not delivering the value is because we haven't adopted digitalization in the manner we spoke about. And secondly, the connectivity between all the stakeholders in the supply chain. So again, coming back to consolidation, I think warehousing, the small warehouses are going to get consolidated into larger warehouses, into modern and more modern warehouses. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Manu. And so just kind of quickly, just give me a second. There's a lot of reminders from the team there. So I'd kind of hold back on the questions and just ask the host if we have a couple of more minutes to go forward, so that we have a couple of questions to answer, and then we can wind up. Can you give us a couple of minutes, please? Yeah, okay, thank you. So one of the points that came up in the deglobalization was in terms of export, manufacturing and exporting to the other countries in terms of Europe and the US. But then the point that was also mentioned was in terms of saying export might happen, but then the export will not be the full products. And we might want to look at components, we might want to look at assemblies which go there and are assembled there. This Mr. Shankar talked about last mile assembly, like we talked about last mile delivery. We talked about last mile assembly. So what the possible things, that capabilities that we need to acquire in kind of going for that particular, doing that service, giving the world that service? How do you look at it? Mr. Kapoor, would you want to look at it? Views on that, please. Mr. Kapoor, maybe you're on mute.
Can you repeat it, please?
So when we are exporting, the point that came up was that you could move instead of having full products, instead of exporting full products, you might possibly want to export the products in, let's say, SKD or
CKD, SKD, yeah.
CKD and SKD, and then assemble at the destination location so that the job opportunities there are also taken care of, and all that happens. So this was the point that was brought up. But then to do that from a logistics standpoint, the logistics industry standpoint, it needs a lot of capability building. So what would be your thoughts quickly on what capabilities would we will have to build on?
Look, there are two types of basically broken up things what we dispatch. Generally, they are CKDs and SKDs, semi-knock condition. And it depends upon country to country, what are the terms and conditions over there, like duties applicable and all. In some countries, CKD will be more viable than SKDs, things like that. That is one aspect. Besides this, we are also doing a lot of CKDs dispatches across the globe, wherever Suzuki transplants are there. But then, I mean, that has to be one particular model. Complete kits have to be formulated and number of units. Those needs a special, I mean, expertise with the people. Packaging is an important issue over here. And then a lot of hazardous goods also there have to be, so you have to take care of those issues. So a lot of, I mean, besides regular expertise, different type of handling capabilities need to be done, which has to be in line with the, I mean, production plans and all, and complete kit has to travel. It cannot be like in part by part. There is another concept what we use is part by part, where the complete kits are not there. You import only few parts which are required for assembly at a particular location. So, I mean, these are all issues which needs to be taken into account.
Thank you, Mr. Kapoor. Thank you very much. Manu, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so I was just want to say that, you know, again, in the automotive industry, there are a large number of component manufacturers who are actually supplying to, you know, large OEMs globally. So we've met their quality standards. So I think there is an opportunity, a lot of headroom for other industries to also, you know, supply components. Maybe you don't supply, let's say, the complete unit, but there may be, let's say, a key component that Indian companies can manufacture because we have excellent engineering skills. We have, you know, a skilled manpower available. So we look at those components that we can supply, even if we can't, let's say, provide a complete end product. And just talking about just a little twist, you know, to what Mr. Kapoor said, you won't believe, from India, we have a very renowned two-wheeler who we are taking the full two-wheeler bike to Dubai, and there we are dismantling it and shipping in parts. Really? So that is, it's going to one of the African countries where there is a huge demand for parts. So it's like a reverse logistics or deconsolidation rather than, you know, what you were referring to as components. So I think people do think outside the box. You have to be innovative, you have to be disruptive, and these are amazing times, actually.
Thanks, Manu. Thanks, everybody. I think we are fairly past time. I wish we had a few more questions on the panel, and we haven't yet taken any questions from the audience, but very, very fairly past time. Thanks a lot for the expertise and the information shared over the call today. And I hope it is very useful for the audience that have been listening into us. Thanks a lot for spending the time and participating here. And over to the host. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to the next session for today. And welcome